Hi, I'm Terry Robinson, Executive Editor at SC Media, and once again we're here at RSA in San Francisco. With me is Phil Reidinger. He is the President and CEO of the Global Cyber Alliance. Hi, Phil.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. So what do you think of the show?
It gets crazier and crazier every year. I love coming here because you don't even have to attend any of the panels. You can see everybody who's really doing anything in cybersecurity just by hanging out in the halls and talking to people.
So what are some of the issues that are rising to the surface?
Well, I think the biggest risk that is driving people these days is the growth around the Internet of Things and the concerns that come from connecting so many things that we depend on in our everyday lives to the Internet, and the different things that presents, like now your food in your refrigerator spoils, or your TV is as we would say, a brick. It no longer operates, rather than just a website is slow.
How do you get a grip on the Internet of Things, though? I mean, that's a hard one.
There are long-term approaches. There are a lot of systemic risks that affect the Internet of Things. That's one of the things my organization, the Global Cyber Alliance, is focused on. We look at reducing what we call systemic cyber risks, so things that are bigger than any one company. In particular, things that could broadly affect an entire nation. Things like risks of phishing.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's a big one right now.
It's a huge one, in part because phishing is still the way that most attacks get started. The Director of National Intelligence last year for the United States said that about 90% of even the sophisticated attacks that they see start with phishing. So it's really important to get a handle on that, and we've got a couple of projects we're working on to significantly restrict phishing.
Great, and the attacks have kind of changed, haven't they? I mean, they're broadening their base. It's not just hitting financial services any longer?
Well, the attacks, Terry, you're right, have changed significantly. One of the ways they've changed is it's now possible through things like Bitcoin to extort money from people. So it's not just about necessarily stealing information, it's threatening business. So in the last year we saw ransomware and generally the rise of what I call cyber extortion. What that means is that the potential number of victims has gone up remarkably, because now it can be cost effective to literally attack an individual and say, your grandmother her data is encrypted and she can't get her kids' pictures back until she pays $500 to a criminal.
Well, and every grandma is going to want to do that, so.
Yeah, cybercrime is really coming home to everyone right now. It's one of the reasons why it's so important to do things globally, to build relationships, to work in partnership. And so the Global Cyber Alliance, for example, has members in almost 20 countries, and we've got 140 partners from around the world who are all interested not necessarily in just making money, but in making the world a better place.
Okay, that sounds great. So let's talk briefly, though, about the DMARC protocol.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, we talked about phishing being a big problem. DMARC is one of the great ways to attack phishing. It doesn't solve all phishing problems, but what it stops is something called spoofing, which I'm sure you're familiar with, yes, but your viewers may not be. So spoofing is when you pretend essentially to be somebody else. What DMARC stops is the ability to spoof email from an organization that's deployed it. So if SC Media had deployed DMARC, then you couldn't fake an email from SC Media to another person and have them think it was from you. Instead, it would go straight to garbage. And we're trying to get everybody to deploy DMARC because it'll make email much more trustworthy, and it'll completely stop one of the worst types of phishing.
Well, and so what level of adoption does it have right now, off the top of your head?
So I can answer that question. For consumers, it's actually really high. And the reason is the big webmail providers of the world like Microsoft and Google and Yahoo have all deployed it. The problem is getting the companies that send email to deploy it. For example, it's just not broadly, DMARC is not broadly deployed across anywhere, including among all of the vendors that are exhibiting here. Only about 15% of the cybersecurity companies that exhibit here have deployed DMARC. So we think there needs to be a major push to get everybody to deploy DMARC.
So thank you for being with us here today. Really appreciate your time. And once again, I'm Terry Robinson, Executive Editor at SC Media, and I'm with Phil Reitinger, who is the President and CEO of the GCA, and we're at the RSA show in San Francisco. Tune in for more.